Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Knope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
Hello, everybody. It is Friday. That means it's Business Over Beer, the podcast time. I'm your co-host, Ben Surratt. Alongside me is the Terror of Power. Hashtag respect the hair.
What do you mean respect the hair? You better respect the hair hat.
I do respect the hair.
What hat you got on today, buddy?
I got the...
He doesn't even know.
Sturgis Brewing Company. Ooh.
Dude, that's a sweet hat, though.
Thank you very much.
And my hair is looking fantastic.
It's on point, brother.
And speaking of hair, with us, as always, our co-host, the man of the hour, not the terror of power, the head himself, Jason Knope.
Yes.
Hashtag respect the head.
Respect the head, yes.
Jason Knope, how you doing, pal?
I'm good. You know, I was driving down the road, the window down, thinking about how I used to have hair, like yours. Perfectly in place.
Yeah?
Looks like you use a lot of gel.
Mostly hairspray, if you can believe it.
That works too. Aquanet.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yep. Of course. I got the hair helmet.
Aquanet.
Yeah.
Gotta have the hair helmet.
Looking good today.
Thanks, man. Yeah, very, very Fabio-esque today.
Yes, definitely.
Well, we didn't come here to talk about ourselves.
We did not.
No, sir.
Too much.
Who do we have today?
We have Matthew Lambright.
Oh,
yeah.
We do.
He's just hanging out with us today.
I came ill prepared with the hair
dude,
puns.
No, brother, you came with beer. You were fine.
Yeah.
I mean, normally I like to be the guy in the room with the best hair, but
This cat's got you beat.
but I think he's got me beat. So definitely hashtag respect the guest hair today. Matthew, welcome to the program, my man.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
So give us just 30-second, 10,000-foot view. You run a business called Envision, which I understand has, a bunch of different parts. Just give us, the 10,000-foot view of your business and kind of what you're into.
Yeah, 10,000-foot view. I own a couple different businesses tailored towards real estate. So the whole goal in the beginning was real estate investment. And then I started running all these little subsidiaries. So mold remediation, renovations, property maintenance as well. And right now, mold remediation is probably what I'm most known for. And the core of it all is real estate investment.
Awesome, man.
Thanks. It's a lot of fun. Chaos, but a lot of fun.
So, Indiana to Portland. How did you end up here?
Yeah, well, the story is pretty interesting. So I was from a small rural town in Indiana. And I'm talking, I literally had horse and buggies in my town. You had to avoid horse poop when you drove.
Were they, was it like Amish or?
No,
Amish.
Friends probably, right?
Friends, yeah, pooping in the road.
Yeah.
No, we had horse and buggies, and they'd poop right there on the road, and you'd avoid it, or your car would smell pretty funny for a while. And so I always had a weird feeling when it comes to going to college right after high school, and I'd ask my friends, why are you going to college? And they'd go, I don't know. That's what I'm supposed to do, I guess. And so I decided I wanted to try something out like the military. I needed the discipline. And it turns out the Army had a nice college fund. So I joined as a combat medic.
Wow.
That took me on my first plane ride ever to Georgia. And then Oklahoma, Texas. And then I was stationed in Hawaii. Where I was stationed for 3 years.
Whoa.
Got married, had a kiddo, and her family was from the West Coast. So when I got out, I always knew, I was always pretty sure I was only going to do about 4 years, and then I was going to get my degree. And she lived on the West Coast, and I said, Indiana, Oregon. Let's try Oregon out. I'm not so sure I want to go back to Indiana.
So, like, just to give people reference, like, how many years in between? Like, in what years do you just estimate? Like
4 years total.
Okay.
Yeah, so I joined in July of 2006.
Okay.
Got out in July of 2010.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
And that's how you got into, like, the eye
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. So I joined as an EMT certified combat medic, which they called 68 Whiskey Papa 3. And then I got into
all I heard is whiskey.
Hashtag 68 Whiskey Papa 3.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, then I got into a school. It was an eye specialty school. And I was stuck in a little optometry clinic for about 3 years. Joined a combat eye team. It's hilarious. Never quite geared up to go. And then got out and became an ophthalmology technician.
Combat eye team. It seems like one of those newscasters, like, it's the combat eye team on Highway 25.
It sounds more formidable than it really is. If you catch me in the prone as a combat eye specialist, something went really, really wrong.
So what was your overall experience though with the Army? I mean, did you like it?
It sucked. Let's just be real. So anybody who's been in the military can tell you one thing: the day-to-day in the military is shit. The overall experience is amazing. So if I were to look back at the 4 years, I'd go, that was incredible, but I'm never doing that again. And I think just about anybody who's been in the military can say, yep, that's exactly it. So the day-to-day is just political BS. You're doing stuff that's redundant and really not needed. But then you're doing really cool things. Like I got shipped off to Cambodia, where I was there for a week and a half. No, it was roughly about 2 weeks. Went through Bangkok, and we just served a medical mission and got to go to a very rural part of Cambodia and see some people who had just gotten roads to their village not even 10 years ago. I did that same thing in Laos. And then I got a chance my last month in, I had a bunch of leave left over and I just got to visit Germany. So yeah, it's just one of those things, but I wouldn't keep doing it.
Right. Right. Did you, a lot of the people that I talked to that were in the armed services is the feeling of camaraderie. Like you have that and it stays with you. Even when you're out, like even if you had a terrible experience, the camaraderie is there. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a friend who called me up out of nowhere about 6 years after I got out, and he said, "Hey, I'm being stationed up in Tacoma. Do you know where that's at?" I said, "Oh yeah, it's like an hour and a half away from me." Yeah, dude, let's hook up. And instantly we were hanging out like we were old buddies, but we hadn't talked in 5 years probably. And yeah, it doesn't go away. It's sort of like if you're being tortured, but you're being tortured together.
Yeah.
That doesn't go away.
Oh yeah, I get. Okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, yeah.
At least you're here with me, man.
Yeah, at least I have you here.
Could be worse.
Yeah. So I mean, I say that lightly, but yeah, there's definitely a form of camaraderie that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So before we get too far then into your business, as I always say, this is business over beer. So this is the beer part. Have you brought a beer for us to drink?
I brought a beer. I brought a Total Domination by Ninkasi. And the reason why I brought it is because it is the first beer that got me into dark beer. Anybody who comes from where I come from know, well, back 10, 15 years ago, everybody drank light beer. Now they're getting towards the craft in that area, and I'm enjoying it. But my grandpa drank Miller's Light. So,
are you listening, Rihanna?
Rihanna, this is you.
And I tried the Total Domination, and I tried their oatmeal stout as well.
Otis.
And those are the two that got me into it. So I brought sort of the OG.
Nice.
Very good.
Well, it's funny because I always think back to my college days. I mean, I drank Milwaukee's Best Light in college, the Beast. Yeah, and for years and years I drank Miller Lite and Bud Light. And of course, you say this got you into dark beer, and I'm like, well, it's not really dark beer, but for those of us who drank light beer for so long, like that, like it was light beer and dark beer, right?
Yep.
There was no differentiation between IPA and porter and stout and brown
And that lead,
it was light beer and dark beer.
Exactly.
So I totally get it.
and
man.
anybody who hasn't crossed over to the dark side, that it's not an easy jump.
No,
It is not. There has to be something that really hits you to get you to come over to the dark side.
What was yours, Ben? What was the beer your first beer you remember thinking, yeah, this I like?
Sam Adams, Boston Lager. It's got to be. It's got to be because, first of all, when you had it, like I had it when I was in my 20s, and like most 20-year-olds, I had no money. So when I did get it, it means I got it paid, and it was probably Friday or a weekend or a day off, which means it was going to be party time. And man, let me tell you, nothing like grabbing a Sam Adams when you're 20-something and making your friends envious. Oh my goodness, don't you know? That's a Sam Adams one.
Betcha.
Look at that dark beer.
Can I get a couple 2 or 3 those? No.
Here's the thing: when you first cross over, you got to be careful because you're used to being able to take like 4 or 5 beers down. You get into a 7% or an 8%, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, that goes to my other part. Like, so there's 2 parts. Like when I moved out here, though, it was completely different because I think one of my first ones was Mirror Pond. Mirror Pond took me by like, whoa, this is a different thing. I love this, and I can just pound these. Oh, no.
Nope.
No.
I tell you, the first time I got really, really messed up by beer was when I went to a place that had like 14% beers. Ugh. And I'm like, all right, I've just had a glass. Oh, I've just had 2 glasses. And no, that hits way differently. You got to be really careful.
Mm-hmm.
But much tastier than Old E or St. Ides in a 40.
Well, Canope, you're from here, though, so you grew up with these kinds of
Man,
beers.
I started with the stuff that said beer on the side in a white can, and Milwaukee's Beast in high school. Natural Ice.
Oh, jeez.
And then I went to Germany.
Ah.
Pilsners. Diebel's Alt. Diebel's Alt was my first introduction to alt beer. And it was fantastic. I loved it.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for being here.
Love
man.
it.
It's so
I
good.
mean, it's a beautiful beer.
It's
I
so
mean,
good.
It's a dark copper. It's super hoppy. It's super bitter. I mean, this is kind of a staple of the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest. I mean,
Yeah.
Ninkasi out of Eugene, right?
Yep.
I mean, they're all over the store shelves, but this is they've got 15 beers on the store shelves, but this is the one. This is kind of the flagship.
Yep.
Really nice beer. And I'll tell you, I go back and forth on this beer. I won't lie to you. I remember like first having it when I moved out here. It's like, oh, this beer's great.
Sure.
And then I had it a second time, and I'm like, oh, God, it's so bitter. I don't know if I like it.
Sure.
But I think in the land of hazies and the land of other beers, coming back, this is just a high quality, just kind of garden variety.
No, I'm
IPA,
with you.
Right? I
100%.
it's just-
Can't go wrong.
It's so good.
When you think of an IPA, this is just kind of it.
Absolutely.
So, a nice
It's
beer.
solid. So, okay. 4 years, Army, done. Then what?
Then what? So I actually got out and thought I was going to become a doctor. So
No way.
I did, yeah. So at that point, I had about 3.5 years of clinical experience, and I'd worked with doctors, and I realized that doctors are just like anybody else. And so it seemed really obtainable. And so I used my post 9/11 GI Bill and started immediately going to college. About 3 years in, I got to my junior year, and I always had this itching to invest in real estate. And I think it stemmed a lot from being actually rather poor growing up and moving a lot. I probably moved 15, 16 times. And I don't know why, but I always wanted to own like pieces of the earth, and, like take control. And so I flipped my first house, and I did it the textbook guru way. No money down. I just bought it. I partnered with some people, and I bought it 3.5 months later, sold it, and the house made $60,000. And I realized,
Whoa.
oh, okay, well, I'm actually kind of good at this. And so from there, it sort of fueled that passion. And then I just kept going. And it got to the point where I started flipping like 2 houses at once, trying to work full time.
And all this was while you were going to school?
No. So at that point, I was working as a certified ophthalmology technician. And so I was working with like eye doctors, doing glasses prescriptions, all that kind of fun stuff. And it was really starting to get in the way of work, because when you're flipping a house, it's absolute chaos. Mm-hmm. You're getting calls all the time. Things are going wrong. And every now and then, there's a call that's really important, and you like want to like dip out real quick. And people started to realize that, hey, Matt's really preoccupied at work. And so that's when I realized I had to make a decision whether I was going to jump into the deep end and be a real estate investor, or continue to do my job full time.
Oh, bro, you were talking my language right now.
What was that itch? I mean, what was it about flipping a house, or what was it about real estate investing? Did you have any kind of background in as far as rehabbing or construction? Or
no, it turns out I barely did anything on houses. I grew up, so without being too dramatic, I grew up without a father figure. My grandpa was my biggest father figure, but my grandpa wasn't really a carpenter. He was he liked to work on old cars and stuff like that. So I got a little bit of a hang of like working on cars, which is basically just cussing and throwing shit. And so when I got into houses, which is, it turns out carpentry is really just cussing and throwing shit as well. And at that point, what I had realized was I was just going to find the people who really knew what they were doing, and I would just kind of oversee them like the quarterback. And I learned that through meeting people who were experienced real estate investors and picking their brain, buying them beer. Turns out buying people beer is the best investment you could ever make into oneself.
Bingo.
You don't say.
Bro. Yes.
Dude, is he like your long lost cousin?
Oh, no joke, man.
This is the best investment you've ever made right here.
There you go. See? And so, yeah, so the burning passion and the fuel that sort of came was more of an angst, like a teenage angst. I grew up, like I said, rather poor. My grandpa was my father figure. My grandpa was a boomer. And the majority of boomers are naysayers. They will tell you how you cannot do something. Very practical, which is, it's just from their generation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, their parents went through like the Great Depression. Yep. We're talking about people who were raised extremely conservatively. And then you get people that come from like rural Indiana, and they're really conservative. One of my favorite stories I like to tell is when I was about 7 or 8, I went up to my grandpa and I said, "Grandpa, I figured out what I want to do with my life." And he goes, "Oh, okay, what is it?" I said, "I want to be an astronaut." And he started laughing. And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Why don't you actually do something you could actually do? Why don't you go for something you can actually do?" And it's like, I was like heartbroken. And then as I grew older, I realized he wasn't trying to be a jerk. He truly believed that. Mm-hmm. So when I flipped my first house, I called him about once every week or two. I said, "Hey, Grandpa, here's where we're at. I'm buying this house in Portland for $103,000, and I'm going to put $55,000 into it, and I'm going to sell it for $200,000. And he's like, "Oh, that's way too much. You'll never get that much." "How big is it?" I said, "It's on a 4,400 square foot lot, Grandpa." And he's like, "Oh, that's so small." Right? This guy has 2 acres back at home for like $20,000, right? I got 4,400 square feet that I'm buying for $103,000.
Oh boy.
He goes, "You gonna sell?" And he goes, "How big is it?" I was like, "Oh, it's 3 bedroom, 1 bath, 950 square feet. "Oh, that's way too small. You're never gonna get that." I said, "All right, I'll keep you updated." So 2 weeks later, I call him, "Hey, we're $30,000 in the project, Grandpa. We're getting there. We're almost done." He goes, "Oh, you better sell that thing while you can." I ended up calling, so I called him a few more times, gave an update. At the very end, I called him. I said, "Grandpa, you'll never believe it. It went for $29,000 over what I thought I'd sell it for, and we made $60,000 off of it." And he goes, "Well, that was lucky."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You better put that in savings.
Yeah. The other thing too is I think a lot of the baby boomer for sure, but the Midwest. I think that's the Midwest mentality, and it's not. It is naysaying, but it's naysaying because they care and they worry.
Absolutely.
And they don't want you to make the same mistakes that they've seen other people make in their life growing up. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree. Yeah, nothing. So the people that I met and grew up with have nothing but good hearts.
Exactly.
They just have a different experience than people. And so the thing that I like to look at is the person I'm getting advice from, did they do what I want to do? And did they do it successfully? And so with Grandpa, did he ever successfully flip a house? The answer is no. So for me, I respected him, but his advice wasn't really applicable to what I was doing. Advice of people that I met and really interacted with and befriended with here in Portland, in the area that I'm working with, those people are who I'm listening to when it comes to these sort of projects.
Do you think when he said that was lucky that there was a sense of pride as well behind that statement? I mean, I think that, when you think about it with grandpas, they kind of want to be reserved. They don't want to, openly show their emotions. And
yeah, well, and so
that was lucky. But in the back of his head, he's thinking,
I think back then, if he had a sense of pride, I don't think it came out in that statement. Maybe it did, but I do have an ultimate victory when it comes to Grandpa. So fast forward 4 years later. At that point, I'd flipped about 14 houses. I owned about 2 to 2.5 in real estate in terms of rentals. And he called me one day and he said, "Hey, you still looking for an investor?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am. What are you thinking?" He goes, "Well, I think I could, I think I could do 20,000. I said, "All right, how much you want for it?" "Well, I don't know." And he gave me some low price. I said, No, Grandpa, you deserve more than that. Let's put you at 9%. You want 9%? Yeah, I'd love 9%. Perfect. Wrote me that check for $20,000. And that night, I went out and I bought myself, not with his money, bought myself a $160 bottle of scotch. I sat out on my truck and just sipped it by myself, just hanging out. And I'd be like, because I had made a believer out of a non-believer.
Yeah.
And that was the ultimate victory with Grandpa.
That's awesome, dude. It's a fantastic story. What was real estate investors, when they did their first deal, all the time, they spend money on something that they wouldn't do normally. What was your first big, just to be obnoxious buy after you did your first deal?
Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh.
Dude,
Because I know mine.
you're talking 5.5 years ago. I've never been that kind of person. I think that maybe I might have bought myself a kayak or something, but I might have gone on like a cool vacation. I remember after one win, because I can't quite think of the first one, but I remember after a big win, I had refied a house that I'd bought. So I'd bought a house for about $10,000 down, and it was a $300,000 house. And then I ended up getting that money back almost immediately from renters. And when I finally refied the house, my partner and I were both able to take $29,000 each out of that refi and just cash it out to ourselves. Right. So here I am with $29,000, and I'm like, wow, I need to celebrate this somehow. So I got my best friend from high school on Facebook Live, and I said, "Hey, guess what? I have a gift for you." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "I'm flying us out to Vegas, and we're going to UFC 200.
Dude.
Nice.
That is solid.
And he just obviously flipped out, and it was a great time. And we ended up going out to Vegas. We had a great time. We watched UFC 200, and it was fantastic. And so I try to spend my money on experiences versus materials.
All right, Ben.
Is it that time?
No, you set it up.
Oh, my first.
Would you buy a DeLorean?
Yeah, me and Doc Brown got together.
It'll never rust.
You know who bought a DeLorean when they got their first big gig?
Who?
Patrick Swayze.
No way.
Swear to God, yeah. When he got Renegade, I believe it was Renegade. You can quote me, or check a fact checker.
Oh, I got a fact check.
I gotta put down my beer.
But no, I think it was when he got Renegade in the early 80s.
That's awesome, though, man. So Angie and I, we did our first, I think it was a lease option deal. I think we made like 10, 15 grand on it. It was like, to us, it was like, whoa, that's awesome. Because it actually works. So I go, I've always wanted to have Louis XIII. Just a shot. So
What is that? Is that Scotch?
It's a whiskey. And it's in crystal. And I saw it up there. And it's like, oh, it's like singing to me. We go to the bar. It's like singing to me.
With the lights.
And it was like $100 and some bucks for just, I think I got 2 shots. And I put down the hundreds, paid. And it
Baller style.
And
Threw them down.
I felt guilty as hell.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Yeah, I've experienced that, like spender's guilt before as well, and it's a real thing.
It is.
It's a real thing. I think I could be wrong, but I think it comes from when you grow up with very little spending. I don't know what your past is, but I think spending in excess for some reason gives you a weird sense of guilt.
I agree.
And I've experienced that as well.
What is the biggest misconception about real estate investors now?
I think the biggest misconception about real estate investors is that they snake properties away from people. And I think the reason why that's a big misconception is I like to believe that I know probably some of the top 10 investors in all of Portland. I know guys who are literally in millionaires clubs where you have to actually prove you're a millionaire to be in it. And they are some of the most kind-hearted, nicest people I've ever met. There are some people behind the scenes, but we don't get to, like, when you're a prominent real estate investor, you don't get to really meet those guys that, like, every now and then you go, what is that guy doing? Is he snaking properties? And I think that even now, in the age of technology, you can't really get away with that anymore anyway. Mm-hmm. And so the reality is that real estate investors are coming into situations where homeowners need a problem solved.
Yep.
And it's just like any other service. I give you an example. If someone has kids that are autistic, and when people come through there, they throw shit and break windows. Well, the last thing you want to do is go on market where everybody's coming around your house, checking it out and freaking out your kids. And so you go to a real estate investor and say, hey, I've got a broken down house, holes in the wall, windows are broken, and I don't want a bunch of people trouncing around here and freaking my kids out. Will you make an offer? I mean, they still have Zillow, they still have Redfin. They can tell roughly what the price of their home is worth. And you come in there and you solve a problem, and maybe for a little bit below market value, but at the end of the day, a realtor is going to come in and take 5-6% anyway, on top of any repairs that come from a repair addendum, which I've sold 16 houses that I've owned personally, and every single one of them I've made concessions on a repair addendum, which means there's this number floating around that isn't really real until it is, and that's your repair addendum. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that real estate investors maybe somehow are shady or causing gentrification, which again is another really big misconception. Because gentrification really comes from a lot of factors, and it's not just black and white. One of the more prominent ones would be immigration to your area, which is huge for gentrification.
Mm-hmm. I think another, you hit on it, man. That's 100%. The biggest thing for what we do, and I real estate's such it's a great way to help people, and make money, of course. But Robert Kiyosaki, which I love that dude.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. You have to really, really want to help people. If you don't, it won't work. And that's his words. You have to really want to help people. And it seems cheesy and it seems whatever, but you feel better when it's all done. You've relieved your client's need. And a lot of our people that we get, especially real estate investors, they get desperate people. Mm-hmm. And it has to be done yesterday, and you do your best. And when the people see that you're doing your best and you actually care about them, it makes you feel what you're doing is good.
Yeah, and I think the biggest mistake you can make is to be insincere because people can smell bullshit from a mile away.
Totally.
And the dumbest thing you could do is think you're outsmarting somebody.
Yeah.
Because most people have a really good compass.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm thirsty again, Jonathan.
Yeah, we're there.
I'm parched.
So we have a brand new, well, Matthew, every episode, my lovely wife, Angela, picks out a mystery beer for us.
Okay.
And we have our guests open it
Okay.
and pour it. But we changed the game a little bit, right?
I like the way we tried this out last time. We're gonna try this again.
I agree. So in that case is Angie's mystery beer. And for the people listening, we will have the picture of it.
Because we have a brand new
It's brand
chartreuse
spanking-
I was just going to say magenta, but
magenta case. But listen, I mean, it's solid.
It's solid.
I mean, we're moving up in the world, man.
So, good thing we have a bottle opener. But, so I will open it for you.
Okay.
All right. I will try my best not to look at the cap, but that's going to be pretty much impossible. But if you want to open it, and then we're going to pour it, and we're going to try to figure out what it is.
Oh, jeez.
I
I'm going to
know.
be terrible at this.
Dude,
so are we.
we're going to be brutal. So go ahead, grab it.
Do it.
Grab it. You got to do it.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Yeah, this is all you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing it. Okay.
Oh, this is going to be.
Butter in there? just for the visual.
Do you think you can open it?
But imagine, if you could visualize.
Well, to keep it cold.
If you could visualize.
Am I supposed to hide it? What's going on here?
No. I'm going to have to open it, unfortunately, because we don't.
Just don't look at the cap.
Can you open it?
Maybe, but if I can, just for a minute,
Yeah.
I want to describe this case because if people could imagine what an airplane carry-on case of golf clubs looks like, that's kind of what this thing looks like.
Yep.
But the size of a beer bottle.
I love the icy bag in it,
ice
too.
bag in it.
That is
the icy
awesome.
That's hot, man.
All right, he did it.
All right,
Hold it
well,
off with the pliers.
All right.
Well, I have an empty glass.
Oh, I don't.
Okay. Drink up, Benjamin.
You have an empty glass, and I have patience.
Now who's the ass?
Whoa.
Well, it is not an imperial stout, which is a nice change. Thank you, Angie. I'm guessing it's an ale. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's pumpkin.
Yep.
Oh, is it the Elysian?
I saw the cap. I saw the cap when you.
Is it Elysian?
Yeah. I think
Oh, wow. See? I didn't look, and thank goodness I'm recording this so people know I did not look.
I did not intentionally look, but he pulled it out of the golf bag.
I was working.
So all right.
I didn't quite know the rules. I didn't hide it very well.
No, that's okay, dude.
Oh, yeah. Legion. You got it.
Yes.
But Elysian has a very you can when you see the cap. Anyway, all right.
Cheers, mates.
All right.
Wow.
There it is. That's right, of course.
Oh, it's the Imperial Pumpkin
Great
Ale.
pumpkin.
Thank you, Angela. Of course.
Tastes like Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It does.
To get that for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Elysian, the Great Pumpkin.
Take a
Of
picture
course,
of that.
out
I'll get it
of
for
the
Thanksgiving.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Are they out of Seattle proper?
I thought so.
I think so. Yeah, Seattle, Washington.
Thanks for opening that, Matthew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pumpkin pie.
I make
in a bottle.
yeah,
I
In a
make.
bottle.
I would argue with anybody that I make the meanest Thanksgiving turkey ever, and that I think has to go in my arsenal.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Love it. I've been trying to expand cooking a little bit.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I do.
What's more relaxing, cooking or MMA?
MMA, 100%. Yeah.
How did you get into that?
I've had a love for UFC since the Army, maybe even a little bit before. But the Army was the first time I was introduced to guys would just have these big old UFC parties, and I'm like, this is so much fun. You'll never watch an event with people as long as everybody understands the event, obviously. But you'll never watch an event with somebody where there's so much energy. It's like watching the Super Bowl every other month. It's just crazy. So anyway, I got into it a little bit because one, I started to realize that those guys have the cardio of like there's not a whole lot you can do that can give you the cardio of someone who practices MMA. It's absurd. Like I've started this My Zone challenge where you monitor your heart rate. And because of my MMA stuff, like I'm having a hard time getting my heart rate up high enough to score a bunch of points. Anyway, so, but the thing is there's also something quite humbling about getting your fucking ass kicked.
Yeah, I bet.
And, and luckily in MMA gyms, most people are really quite controlled. They know what they're doing, and so they don't beat up on people. They actually, when you're really skilled at what you do, you know how to play defense to a newbie. And so a lot of times what happens is you go in all intimidated to one of these gyms, and you get people who fight professionally, and they'll know how to like counter you and play a little more defense with you without actually beating the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Every now and then you get someone who's a little bit angsty, and they do. But there's something at the very end of it, you just have no fight left in you, and that's a good thing. Because the masculine energy is just like, you get too cooped up and you just feel like raging for like no reason.
Yeah.
It's like in traffic, someone cuts you off and you're ready to murder them. Even if you don't know how to fight, you're like, I'm going to do it.
Kayla, you know nothing about that, bro.
Well, I'd like to point out.
You know nothing about that.
I'd like to point out that the question was, what is more relaxing? That description did not sound very relaxing to me at all. But, hey,
No, I heard from Joe Rogan, I believe, he goes, actually, if you've never fought before in your life, and you're like, I'm like the dad guy, the dad. I got the dad bod, I guess it's called. No, I'm serious. Like MMA.
serious, folks.
He goes, yeah, for real. MMA is the way to go. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I think at a certain point it becomes, you have to get yourself into like a flow-like state, especially with jiu-jitsu. And, even if you're having trouble relaxing during the actual practice of it, it doesn't take long before you learn how to get kind of into that flow state. And then at the very end, you're so worn down physically, not quite like at this high alert, like I'm miserable, like I'm anxious, I got my ass kicked sort of thing, but more so like you're just physically exhausted, and you're just so relaxed. And so, I enjoy cooking for sure. I just think that there aren't a lot of things that compare to how you feel maybe after you've done some MMA type classes and things like that.
I get that.
And you just go around the world just feeling a little more confident and a little bit better. Someone can be pretty aggressive to you, and if you're confident and you have skills, it's pretty easy to kind of shake that kind of stuff off and know that, hey, I just saved you from getting your ass whooped. It's just a different way of looking at the world, I think.
So one of the things I'm curious about, Matthew, in your business, just kind of researching, all the different things that you're into, is I want to ask you about diversification,
Okay.
Particularly in your business, because you're in the house flipping, you're in the rehabbing, you're in property maintenance, you're in mold remediation, and they're all certainly related. But I'm curious how that diversification came about. Was it very intentional that, hey, it's a smart business move to be diversified in different areas, or was it a little more organic where it just kind of came about that, hey, you had opportunities in different areas and started to take advantage of it?
It was definitely organic. It wasn't intended on. One of the things that I didn't anticipate. So when you're investing in real estate, it's a very cash heavy thing to do in the beginning, because in my opinion, I'm looking for a retirement plan. I'm looking for something where I have homes when I'm 50, 60 that I can start leveraging and start working towards retirement with. But it does take a lot of capital in the beginning to buy a house here, buy a house there. And so one of the things that I started to struggle with when my family started to grow was I realized I need better cash flow. And so that's when I started pushing towards, I think the very first one we did was we were approached, I think, about either property maintenance, or I think it was property maintenance we were approached about. And a friend had a property maintenance company. He wanted to partner with us. Awesome. So then we realized we had to get a CCB, and we got tired of contractors. And so we're like, well, let's form a little team for renovations. So then we started selling those skills for much higher cost. And then we were approached about actually the mold patent. Someone approached us about it because it is a $70,000 buy-in. And so they came up to us. They said, hey, I got this opportunity. I want to invest in you guys. Here's the return I want. Are you interested? And when I first saw the mold company, I actually thought it was some weird MLM thing because it didn't seem real.
What's an MLM?
Like a multi-level marketing program.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I thought it didn't seem real to me. You're going to buy in, you're going to sell this product where you dry fog an area to kill mold. To me, that seemed really weird. And not only that, but it sterilizes everything on the planet. And so I started doing the research, looking into all the studies, and I realized, okay, this is real. So we'll go ahead and open it, open the company. The one thing I can say is that if I had to go back, I don't think I'd change a whole lot, but the one thing I will do moving forward is go a lot more narrow and deep. I think the thing that I'm learning.
What do you mean by that?
So what I'm learning is that like it's so easy to think you have something mastered until you do it all the time, every day, nonstop. And those people who really do it, and they do it with a passion every single day, in and out, they will be far, far ahead of you in that category than you could be as if you're doing 5 other things at once. And so I think for me, in 2020, I will be redirecting a lot of my efforts into the real estate, back into the real estate, getting my finger back on the pulse and back into investment and ultimately multifamily investment.
So what does that look like for your business? Are you looking to potentially sell off your other businesses? Are you looking to find other management for the other arms of your business? What do you think that looks like for you in 2020?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going to be having trust in people. That's one of the things we have a really hard time with. A lot of us just say, oh, well, I'll just do it myself. And that's really a very common thing to do, is say, I'm just going to do it myself because no one can really do it like I can. I think a lot of what I need to do is have a little bit of faith and trust that someone else can do it. And even if they don't quite perform to the level that I can with my company, it'll free up a lot of brain space to stay within my passion. And I think that's ultimately going to be the best way to move forward with these businesses.
Yeah. I heard a long time ago, somebody said to me, as a manager, it was a management training class, and she said, delegating is so important. And of course, the person you're delegating to can't do it as well as you can. But if the person you're delegating to can do it 80% as well as you can, delegate it.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's a hell of a lot easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to do it differently. They're going to have a different approach, and that's still really hard. But you have to get yourself in that mind space to trust and to understand that, hey, you know what? They're still going to get us to where we need to be.
And I think it comes down to a little bit of what is your time worth? What is your time worth per hour?
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of the entrepreneurs have taught me is, what is my time worth per hour? Now, if I'm going and doing something, I'm making, 100 per hour, but I'm actively doing it. That's my worth. But if someone else is working for me, making, 80% of the effort? So let's say they're making 80 an hour. But my time is freed up to do other things where I can still continue to try to make 100 an hour with my time. And I think that's the big thing that people miss along the way is, they're doing it for a little less, but what are you doing now?
Yeah.
Where are you spending your efforts and your time?
Yeah.
And not forgetting that now they're getting this experience and they're learning and they're going to continue to improve and get better.
Yeah.
Under hopefully the coaching that that we as managers can give. So
and even if they fail, you get experience in hiring. You get experience in who works and who doesn't.
Sure.
That's the one thing you learned when we were doing real estate investing is OPM, OPT, other people's money, other people's time. What does that mean? Other people's money, banks. You don't care what interest rate the banks are going to charge you if you're investing in something else because you know you're going to get that money back because you've done your due diligence. Mm-hmm. Other people's time. You have the people looking out for different properties for you. You have the bloodhounds who are able to, hey, that looks vacant. My kids are phenomenal at looking at vacant properties. Mm-hmm. They can spot them immediately. So you have those people around you supporting you. It makes your job a little bit easier.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Especially the other people's money part.
It sounds so bad, but it's not. It's not that bad.
No, it's not, because I mean the difference is one mistake can wipe you out forever, whereas one mistake with other people's money, majority of the time, if they're well off, will just give them a little bit of a setback, and it allows you the ability to be a little braver, and it allows you the ability to have another brain on your project. So if I come in and I say I'm going to flip this house, or I'm going to buy this apartment complex, and I go to someone and say, I would like your money. Well, they're not just going to be like, here you go. They're going to say, let me see the deal. Let me see what you have going on. They're going to go over all the details, all the numbers. And if they're throwing, my last apartment I tried to buy, I got extremely close, failed at the last hour. And I had someone willing to invest $750,000. Now, when you have somebody who's willing to invest $750,000, they will look at every single nook and cranny of your deal.
Sure.
That is one of the best things you get from using other people's money, because they're going to go through and analyze things with years of experience, years of wealth that you don't have. And there's nothing that's more solidifying that you have a good deal than if somebody who's really, really quite experienced looking at your deal and saying, I'll invest.
Yep.
So we're at the end of this economic cycle, and real estate seems to be, when the country goes into economic recession, that's where people get hurt. What are you doing to sort of prepare yourself for that as we go into the next, say, 12 to 24 months? We're probably going to get to the end of this economic cycle. You know, it's unlikely it's going to be 2008, 2009 over again. We're not probably going to have the Great Recession, but we're going to hit a downturn probably sometime in the next 24 months. What are you doing as a business owner to try to
love that
prepare
question?
For that?
Yeah. Love that question, bro.
Yeah, great question. So what I am doing, first and foremost, always staying up to date on my education. So like any good profession, you need to be updating, reading, and talking to people who really know their stuff as often as possible. So one of the things that I do is just remind myself every time I have like a networking meeting, every time I have people that are much, much smarter than I am meeting up and educating, I'm there. Another thing I'm doing is just making sure to really be conservative with my estimates in terms of what I'm buying, how long I'm holding for. I'm probably not going to be doing projects that are 24 months long. And here's what I'd say to a downturn. I've been doing real estate since about 2013. And 2014, 2015, everybody kept coming up to me and going, hey, it's coming. That recession, right? We had a lot of historians after 2008, 2007, 2008, a lot of historians. Hey, it's been 7 years. Oh, it's coming. I wouldn't get into it now. Now's a terrible time to get into real estate. Turns out I bought properties anyway, and they went up 100,000 in value. So what I would say is a market downturning isn't the end of the world, because you just learn how to operate in that market. One of the things that scares me the most is the market neutralizing, because then that's a part that it becomes everything sort of comes down to the middle, and now you can't play either side. Whereas, you know, the last 4 or 5 years, I could play the seller side. If I bought really well, I knew that I could put it on market and have it sold in 5 days. You flip it the other way, and it's a buyer's market. I know that I can get a home for a really low price because it's that kind of market. The neutral market is one that I would have to educate myself on, and that one I'm a little more concerned about. But at the end of the day, Portland's got a high immigration rate. A lot of people want to come to Portland, especially people in like San Francisco. I was in San Mateo the other day looking at the average cost of homes in San Mateo, not even San Francisco. And I think I was a little bit downtown, and I pulled up my property radar and looked at all the pricing around me, and it was an average, I think, of $2 million. So if let's say you have $1 million home in San Francisco, well, we're only at like $440 median house price in Portland. it's pretty easy. And that's what we're seeing a lot of, is that top 10% tier coming over into Portland and buying up homes, because they just sold their $1 million home. Now they got all this cash and they're seeing a median price of $440 going, not a big deal. I'll take it. And so I don't think, we can see the Portland market leveling out a little bit, but we're also seeing more rural distal markets flourish. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I don't know what exactly to expect, but I think the biggest thing is just staying up on my education.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I love it. I think the other thing is your exit strategies. What are you going to do with the property? You're going to hold it. You're going to flip it. You're going to, you're going to lease with an option to buy later. I keep going back to Rich Dad, but we learned so much from that. And we also had a mentor. I want to talk about that right now.
Okay.
Your grandfather, how important was having that father figure or mentor there during the time you were in between, or doing your real estate investing?
Not.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
To be honest. When I really look back and revisit, my grandparents were huge. They were a huge impact for me up until I was probably, most of my life. But they're more prominent. It was much of my childhood. So I can say there's a lot of core things that came from them. But in terms of what really made me successful in real estate, I wouldn't say I would attribute that to them. I think with real estate, it was a lot of finding mentorship within my local community. It's really hard to pinpoint what drives us. I don't know how exactly to answer that, but I do know that because of my childhood, I have a lot of passion and a lot of angst. So I'm the type of guy who won't run for months, and then I'll just get mad one day and be like, fuck it. And I'll just run 6 miles. And that sort of angst is what really motivates me to do crazy things in real estate that other people are, really will shy away from. I think my grandparents really had an impact on me, especially my grandmother, in terms of just keeping me well balanced and helping me get to a point in life where, I may not have gotten to without them.
That's awesome, dude.
Ben, I think it's time.
Is it that time?
It's time for the final
The
question.
final question. Matthew.
Yep.
You are the host of your own talk show.
See, you threw me off.
Who is your first guest?
Holy shit.
And why?
Oh my goodness. Who is my first guest? You guys totally threw me off on this one. It's going to sound it's going to sound a little bit cheesy to people, but I think my first guest is going to be Joe Rogan. I think it's going to be him. If he wants to come on my show, the thing about him is, with a lot of celebrities, a lot of people who have made it, you're not quite sure, what brought them to the stage. And then a lot of them fizzle out really quickly. This dude's a celebrity that you can just tell has earned it every step of the way. And the way that people describe him on his podcast when they talk about him is he's one of the realest, nicest people you'll ever meet. And not that he needs any more exposure, but if I'm part of a place that's exposing people to the world, I want to expose people who really, really try to do it right. Mm-hmm. So that, I would say that's probably who I'd bring on.
I love that, dude.
And he was on news radio, with
Phil Hartman,
which was awesome.
Did you see his thing about Phil Hartman? Mm-mm. Look it up. So there was we were flying, Jonathan and I, back from Vegas. I look at Jonathan, I go, dude, human beings made this bucket of bolts fly. And he goes, yeah, and got us here safely. And I was like, I went to a different level. I'm like, dude, if people can do so much bad shit. Listen to me. People can do so much bad shit, and we know that. But we are also capable of really good shit. We can do much, much more better just by being cool and good and open-minded. And Matthew, you are probably one of the coolest, open-minded people that I know.
I appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation. I mean, you're very grounded and, clearly you're running a successful business. But it doesn't come across arrogant or pompous in any way. It's very thoughtful. And I think there's a lot of really good lessons and a lot of things that our listeners will take away from it. And I appreciate that. But you're also not afraid to have fun. It's very real. It's very authentic.
Cool.
It's cool, man. Really appreciate
you.
it.
For real. Awesome.
Love it.
If people want to find out more about Envision, about Mathew himself, where do you want to send people to find out more about you and your business?
Wherever you want to go. I don't need, we don't have any landing pages for you. If you want to find us on social media, you can look me up, Matthew Lambright. If you want to look up the company, it's Envision Estates. If you want to look up you got a mold problem, Envision Mold Remediation. I'm also forming a investment education platform called House Junkie, which is pretty fun.
That's cool. Well, when you get that thing up and running, come back and tell us all
For
about
sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
Canope, if people want to find Business Over Beer, where do they go?
bizoverbeer.com. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Business Over Beer. You can find us on Instagram, Biz Over Beer. We have all the things. We're everywhere.
All the things.
We have all the things.
That's
And
right.
if you can't find us, let us know. We'll put ourselves there.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank everybody. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for you listeners for listening and downloading. And please share.
Absolutely.
Share it up.
See you next time.
Business Over Beer reminds you to always drink responsibly. Our theme song is Idiocracy by Christian Leo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Business Over Beer.